Hi, this is Zena Krogadal, your American Dream Makers host today. And I'm so excited to be back. I know we were on break for just a little bit and had a lot of fun things going on, but here I'm back today. And I have a very, very, very special guest to introduce to you. But first, I'm going to go ahead and play my intro video. Here we go. And I'm back again. I am Zena Krogadal, your American Dream Makers host today. And I have two very, very special guests who are very, very dear to my heart. And I want to introduce the real Forrest Gump, the man who inspired the story of Forrest Gump, Sammy L. Davis, first sergeant, private first class sergeant. And he is a Vietnam veteran, a Medal of Honor recipient. And he tours around with his lovely, beautiful wife, Dixie Davis. And they are an amazing, amazing couple. I'm going to bring them on. And you guys, if you are on here, please let us know and share this out. They have an amazing message. And please also be sure to put your questions into the chat. Ask away. So here we go. Hi, Sammy. Hi, Dixie.
Hi, Zena.
How are you doing today?
We're good. Good to see you.
Thank you.
It's great to see you guys. And I just love when you put on your uniform there, Sammy. It just brings such feelings of warmth, and it reminds me so much of why I'm able to be here. And I thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to be here. And for some of my viewers, they do know that I am from Vietnam. And so you being a Vietnam vet and going over, sacrificing all the things that have happened, I just can't thank you enough. So I'm so excited to have you here today. So just to get started, can you tell us about yourselves?
I'm a Medal of Honor recipient, Army. It was an honor to serve my country, and I'm still trying to serve it by going out and inspiring America to stand up for what you feel is right in your heart. I want America to take part.
That's great. And then Dixie, you and Sammy, you have been touring around. I mean, you guys are all over the place. So tell us a little bit about all the things that are going on. You know, Sammy, we're just so grateful for all that you've done. And I do want to get into that story a little bit, but I also want to hear a little bit about Dixie too.
We travel. We're on the road about 200 days a year, traveling and trying to be motivational speakers. But we talk to, lots and lots of school kids. And we talk to corporations, military. I was just thinking the other day, we had talked to a dental convention, and they had T-shirts made for everybody and said, "Life is like a box of chocolates, but don't forget to floss." So we have a big variety of people that we really talk to. Enjoy them all. Our kids, our school kids, are so smart. When I was in third grade, I was concerned about recess. These kids know
amazing
world events. They have the best questions, and
we always open it up to question and answer.
Sometimes we get the funniest questions. One little boy, we talked to second grade recently, and one little boy looked at Sam in his uniform and he said, "Were you in the Civil War?"
And he meant it.
Yes, I was. But so we have an opportunity to meet so many special people, and I realize that we probably travel in very patriotic circles, but like Sam always says, we've got really good kids in America. We might have some parents that need a little work,
but we've got good kids.
So we really enjoy. We should be retired. We're 76 and 77, but you just keep going. You just hope to make a difference in somebody's life.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm actually really glad that you guys aren't retired, because your guys' message just really inspires so many people. So, Sammy, can you take us back to Vietnam? I know, I believe that a big part of the Forrest Gump story was um, your Medal of Honor
Yes,
uh,
ma'am.
ceremony. So that famous scene, right?
Yes, ma'am. I served with the 9th Infantry Division, was in the southernmost portion of South Vietnam, down in the Mekong Delta, and Dixie and I got to go back and visit the exact places where I was stationed at in South Vietnam, and how beautiful the country was and how beautiful the people were. Little kids on the street. Now, I was not in uniform, I was just in t-shirt and blue jeans, but little kids would run up to me and touch my hand and say, "Thank you." And our interpreter says, well, that means that somebody in their family was alive when the Americans were here and wanted them to tell you thank you. And it was, but you could see that look in their eyes, and they meant it. They meant thank you. And it just makes your heart feel good. And to be reminded of how beautiful South Vietnam is and how beautiful the people are.
Wow, that's great. And yes, we are very, very grateful for your service. So, going back to I get the moment that can you I guess tell us the year that you were in Vietnam?
67, 68.
67, 68. So it was a real hot zone during that time.
Yes, ma'am.
And so the famous scene that you were shot in the buttocks.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you tell us? Yeah, could you tell us about that?
Well, that was the night that I earned the medal, and I was shot by my own people, my own guys. They thought we were all dead. They seen our 105 howitzer get hit, and it blew up, and we were all laying there, and here come the enemy, and they were bayoneting and shooting us to make sure that we were dead. So my guys, our next gun behind us, fired the beehive round. They did their job. Well, I wasn't dead, but that saved my life, because when it hit me, I instinctively rolled over into my foxhole, and I was unconscious before that. And I started hearing noises. This explosion was so loud. That's why I can't hear very well today. But the explosion was so loud that my head was just ringing, and I couldn't hear nothing. And as I'm laying in the bottom of my foxhole and I'm looking up, I could see these pretty lights coming right over my head. And I thought, wow, man, that's just like Christmas. Well, after a few more minutes, I realized it wasn't Christmas, that they were tracers. Our tracers were red, and theirs were blue or green. So I had red, blue, and green tracers going all over the top of my foxhole. And as I became more aware and my hearing started to come back a little bit, well, I realized where I was and what it wasn't. And I raised up, and there I could see there were 42 of us and 1,500 of the enemy, a reinforced heavy weapons battalion of NVA in uniform. And I could see them coming. So I started doing my job as an artilleryman, and that's how I got hit with the beehive. I had 30 beehive holes in me, one AK-47 round on my right thigh, and the rest I only had 7 beehive left in me, but I had 30 holes.
That went through your body.
That went through my body.
Wow.
Other than that, he's in pretty good shape.
Yep. Well, I was bleeding. All I looked down at, this was about 9 o'clock in the next morning, and I'm sitting in my foxhole, and I could see I had just little rivulets of blood ringing down, and I couldn't really see a hole. All I could see was little X's. The beehive darts are little darts, and they have 4 little fins on them, and the fins is what made the X's as they exited my body. But like I say, my head wasn't totally functioning correctly, because I couldn't figure out, well, why are the X's bleeding? I didn't know what they were. And then I passed out and woke up in the hospital, and they explained to me what the X's were.
Well, you also had a broken back and
Oh yeah, crushed ribs. Ribs were crushed on the right side because the howitzer ran over me. When I fired, I put too much powder in it, and the recoil mechanism had been totally blown off of it. So when I fired the first round, it ran backwards over me, and that's what broke my back, crushed my ribs. And
Oh, you
Wow.
were burned too.
yeah, I was burned because the gun was burning.
That's incredible. So what were the thoughts that were going through your head when you, I guess when this was happening? Like, did you have a sense that, oh, this is a bad situation? I mean, what were the thoughts?
At first, no. The shell shock or whatever you want to call it, my brain wasn't working. I wasn't worried about anything. I was just kind of sitting
Well, I
there.
think it was the concussion.
The
that
concussion, yes,
scrambles your brain up.
scrambled my brain.
It never did fully repair.
Oh,
And as my head started to clear after a while, that's when I realized more and more and more what was happening and what I needed to do, and I did.
spoken like a true hero. I mean, wow. And it's what a miracle, really.
Definitely. I did for the brothers what I knew they would do for me. I'm not a brave man. I'm 76 years old and I'm still scared of the dark, but I went and got my brothers because I knew that's what they would do for me. And I hope I would do it again today if I had to.
So so I guess take us back a little bit further. So before that beehive went off, what was the situation that was going on that
Well, I had 1,800 people shooting at me.
yes.
They probably weren't all shooting at once, but I had a lot of people shooting at me, and it was amazing.
Yeah. But then you had to, you also, you had taken a raft over across the river, right?
That was after I woke up.
Oh, that was after you were shot.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
So then tell us what happened after you were shot then.
My back was broke, my ribs were crushed, I was burnt. But when I seen 3 of my brothers across the river and they were waving at me and said, help, I went and helped them. I did for them what I knew they'd do for me.
Explain what the raft was.
Oh, the raft was a sleeping mattress, you know, that little blow up. The Army gives you this, air mattress
Air mattress. Yeah.
that you just blow up. Well, the only thing that would hold air was the pillow that you lay your head on, but that was enough to support me. And I swam across the river and got my brothers, and they held on, and I brought them back. It worked.
Wow. That is incredible. And for you to, and I suppose that's the survival mechanism when you were talking about how you must have been shell shocked and didn't, quite grasp, the I guess the severity of the situation where you're at, but you just went on superhero mode. That's what it was, superhero mode.
You do what you know is right in your heart. And that's what I did. I helped my brothers.
Yes, that is the ultimate love and help for sure. And Dixie, when did you and Sammy meet?
Well, we have like the best love story ever, but we were both married. My husband was a 3-tour hospital corpsman attached to the Marines. And so he eventually died from Agent Orange cancer. We lived in Texas, and Sam
His name was Doc Holliday.
Tim Holliday.
Tim
So Sam and Peggy lived in Illinois, but we all knew each other because Tim was also an entertainer. So a lot of times he was entertainment where Sam was speaking.
Yes.
So we were all friends. And then like 4 years later, I think Peggy also passed away from cancer. And I don't know how many months after that, but I got an email from Sam that said, Dixie, how you doing? And I just stared at the screen. I thought, what? It's been 4 years since Tim died. So I was like, okay. But I figured out that when your spouse dies, you want to talk about them all the time.
Yes, definitely.
Nobody else does because they're afraid you might cry or they might make you feel bad. So when that came to me, we ended up, we never talked for a long time. We just emailed. We were very old fashioned. And we talked about Peggy and her life. And then we went on to grandkids and our lives. And so we just kept emailing. And then eventually he said, are you going to Skidmore this year? Skidmore is this little teeny town in northwest
Skidmore Freedom Fest.
Missouri. And it's my turn. You can't
I'm
talk.
sick.
So anyway, I kept saying no because I was working 3 jobs. I did, paying
Hospital.
medical bills. There wasn't enough money to do that. And I kept saying no. And then it was also hard because Tim's singing partner, Michael J. Martin, he was going. And I knew that he always put Tim's microphone up. And that was hard. So finally, Sam called and said, oh, I got to back up. When he finally called me, he was cleaning his desk and a little Post-it note fell out of a phone ledger. And in Peggy's handwriting, it said, call Dixie. And it had my phone number on there. So that's when we actually talked in person. But anyway, going back, he called me and he said, okay, if I pay for your plane ticket, will you go? And I said, okay. So anyway, we got to re-meet. It had been probably 15 years since we had seen each other. And so we got to re-meet with everybody watching. That was kind of cool. And he was playing harmonica with the band on stage. They had bleachers and tents and a whole grassy area in front of the grandstand was empty. He put his harmonica down. He came over to me and he bowed. I mean, nobody bows anymore, right? So he bows and he said, can I have this dance? And everybody was staring at us. So I just said, no. And they started clapping. So we danced, and it was just really sweet. Everybody was so supportive. And so that was the start of.
There were about 2,700 people there, and all of them knew us.
And then the following year, we got married there on stage with most of the same people that were there for the original meeting. We had a really big cake.
Yes, we did.
And lots of people, right?
Yes,
Yes, it was
wonderful.
great.
That's
And that was over 18 years ago now.
And I believe we're going to go back to Skidmore again this year. It's in October this year, right? Freedom Fest.
I have to look it up.
Yeah.
Our schedule is crazy. You have to kind of look 2 weeks out and memorize. And
yeah, your schedule is kind of crazy with everything for sure. So when he played the harmonica, Sammy, what did you play? Do you remember?
Yes, ma'am, I do. My mother sent me a harmonica.
oh wait, you played everything. You played you played with the band. So
yeah, I played
he has
the band.
perfect pitch, so he really can play anything. But I bet you're asking about the other harmonica story.
Well, I do want to get to that, how he ended up learning to play the harmonica. I was just curious what he played, for you.
I don't remember.
Shenandoah.
No, with the band.
Oh, with
festival.
the band that night?
Yeah. Anything that they played, he played
Yeah.
along.
Okay. Yeah.
I guess
Harmonica
that
with-
did not stick in my mind.
Well, I just was playing whatever the band was playing.
Well, so take us back, Sammy. How did you learn how to play the harmonica? What got you to that?
I'm going to go see if the kids have a harmonica.
Because I forgot to put a harmonica in my
I'll
pocket.
be back.
Okay.
In Vietnam, I had not been writing home to my mother as often as she thought that I should. And I was writing once every 2 or 3 weeks, just simply because of our schedule. And my mom went to our local politician and said, well, my son, Sammy Lee Davis, is in Vietnam and he's not writing. And I just wonder if he's okay. And so she gave him all my contact information, and he went to the Congress, and Congress got a hold of the Army and the Department of the Army in Washington, D.C., and said, hey, we've got this troop we don't know is okay, and you need to check on him as soon as possible. Well, they contacted what ended up being my captain in Vietnam. And I didn't know nothing about this. This was all within a 2 or 3 day period. I was sitting in my foxhole, and here come the captain. And he said, Private Davis. And I said, yes, sir. He said, you haven't been writing home to your mother. And I said, well, no, sir. He said, well, you need to write home to your mother every day, and every letter must have at least 3 paragraphs in it. So when you have to write home to your mama every day, and it has to be at least 3 paragraphs, what do you write about? Now, we were in a combat situation, so you couldn't just, we weren't doing things that you could write home to mom about. So I wrote about the ducks, and I wrote about millions of ducks in Vietnam, and I wrote about the mud and how it smelled, and all the rice, because just miles and miles and miles of rice paddy, and the water and how it smelled, and even how it tasted. And got my 3 paragraphs in every day, every day, every day. Well, after a couple of weeks of doing that every day, I got a package from home. And I thought it was mom's cookies, because she was famous for her oatmeal raisin cookies. And when I opened the package on it, it was a harmonica. That harmonica is in the museum, and it has my mom on the harmonica case. It was a Hohner echo harp, and on the box it has, son, I hope this helps you be not quite so bored. So I put the harmonica in my pocket. I was bummed it wasn't cookies, and with just a few minutes later, my captain come walking by, my sergeant come walking by, Johnston Dunlap, and he said, so, Private Davis, I hear your mother sent you a harmonica. And I said, yes, Sergeant. He said, well, play Shenandoah for me. I didn't know how to play the thing, but when the E6 asked the private to learn how to play the harmonica, you said, now we were artillery, the enemy knew where we were, so I could set out in the bushes and I'm trying to figure out Shenandoah. Well, I figured it out, and within a week or so, you could tell what I was playing. And Sergeant Dunlap would come walking by, and he'd say, play it for me, Sam. And I'd play Shenandoah. And I played Shenandoah for Sergeant Dunlap. Well, I've been playing Shenandoah for Sergeant Dunlap now for almost 50 years. God bless him. It's still for him.
Wow. And that, I would imagine that was such a beautiful sound when you were down. Oh, boy, we're going to get to hear.
Do you
All
want
right. Yes.
Okay, this is Shenandoah for Sergeant Dunlap.
Beautiful.
Thank
Wow.
you.
What, Shenandoah, that is such a beautiful song, and it does, in and of itself, it's a song that does bring hope.
Where Sergeant Dunlap was from was the Shenandoah Valley. That's why he loved the song, and that's why he wanted me to play it for him as often as I could.
I see. So it reminded him of home, but peaceful and all that. And so, and in that, because you learned to play it, I imagine that for all the comrades you had with you, it probably gave them a sense of peace and hope as well.
Indeed, it did. When we gathered today, one of the first things they asked is, Sam, did you bring it? My harmonica? And I'll pull it. And they said, play it for us. So I played Shenandoah for them, and they said it always just brings peace to a heart to hear it.
That how awesome, and how awesome it was that your mom sent that to you, so that you would have comfort, and then you ended up comforting so many, and you still comfort so
I,
many in that.
I still try to. Yes, I've had the privilege of going to the Shenandoah Valley and standing on a ridge and playing Shenandoah for my Sergeant Johnston Dunlap, and I could just feel it in my heart that he could hear it.
Wow,
It's lovely.
that's amazing. So no wonder when he played the harmonica for you, Dixie, it captured your heart too.
I don't think I had even heard Shenandoah when you first were playing the harmonica. That came later.
Well, I played Shenandoah for everybody later, but I always
Yeah.
played it since Vietnam.
Now I've heard it a few times.
Does it get old?
No,
No.
no, because it's always interesting to watch an audience
Yes.
because you can instantly pick out veterans, because a lot of times they'll be crying or it's just a look. It's hard to describe, but you instantly know a veteran.
They care.
And so that's always, it's very emotional to see that and how it affects everybody. I don't know, did you mention about when you played it, put the other guys at ease?
I didn't mention that. Go ahead, tell it.
Sam said when
Well,
he would play over and over and over in Vietnam, it made all his buddies, they could relax because they knew he was awake and they knew that everything was okay or he would not be playing. So it gave them all comfort back in Vietnam too.
I would sit there and watch the perimeter while I played the harmonica. And all the guys knew that if they could hear the harmonica, that everything was okay. So that was one of the reasons why it brought peace to their heart.
Wow. That again, it's just so mind-boggling to think that just one act from, your mom asking you or sending it to you to comfort you, and then it ended up being touched so many lives, more than she probably even realized. She thought she was helping just her son, and it helped her to think that you were comforted.
The cookies would have brought 6 or 8 people happiness for 20 minutes. The harmonica has put love in our hearts for over 50 years. So that's awesome.
50 years. Yeah, that is awesome. So when you met Dixie, you guys both met each other at a very difficult time in life, right? You had lost your spouses. Yeah.
Yes.
And so I guess when you met Dixie, what did it mean to you, or how did you, I guess, describe, going from having grief and then meeting the lady that changed your life. So, so you were lucky twice. That you got to experience love not once, but twice. And Dixie is such a joy. So just tell me the experience of when you met her.
Well, actually, I had seen Dixie at her home in northern Illinois when she was still a teenager.
I didn't remember you though, sorry.
Well, you just waved at me. But one of our family friends knew her daddy, and they had great pheasant hunting on her farm. And so we would drive from southern Illinois up to hunt on the Bush farm. And it was great. We'd come get out of the car or truck or whatever, and we'd wave at Dixie. But that was it. She didn't pay much attention to us, which was okay.
I had boyfriends.
We were up to go pheasant hunting, and that's back when there were lots of pheasants. So it was awesome.
Wow.
We had known each other for many years.
Oh yes, because of Tim.
We actually met each other as non-married people.
I'd always loved her because of her husband Tim. Tim was my brother, and I loved Dixie because it was Tim's wife. It was awesome.
And that was really fun.
Well, definitely, you're still fun.
And how amazing is that you guys have known each other for so long, that you've been in each other's life, kind of weaving in and out, so to
Yeah.
speak, right? And that you knew each other's spouses, and so you also shared that, and that's really special too, right?
Indeed.
Because you don't.
Whole different thing because you're not divorced, you're not separated, you've lost
Yep.
your husband or your wife. So that was really pretty much a common denominator for us because we still talk about him all the time, and it's okay.
Yep.
It's not a jealousy thing, or it was our life, it's just part of it. So he said everything changed when I gave him a hug at Skidmore. I was not instantly smitten, but there
Well,
were too many people watching us.
I had hugged her but it was my brother Tim, her husband. It was his wife. I mean, there's a difference with the kind of hug you get. And when she hugged me in Skidmore, Missouri, all of a sudden it wasn't a brotherly hug.
All of a sudden you knew you wanted a little more than just the friendship.
Yes, ma'am, a little more than the hug.
That's great. So yeah, I think you guys do have one of the best love stories for sure. I think they should make a movie out of it personally, Not just,
I bet it would be a good movie because they always add in on a movie script.
well, and if they made a movie, who would you want to play you, Dixie?
Betty White.
Betty, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, she would have been a good.
Yeah. Gosh, I don't know. No, I don't know.
That's just a fun question. I know I put you on the spot on that one. Just
I'll be thinking about it and see.
well, a couple more questions, Sammy, on the Forrest Gump movie. How did that come to be? I mean, how did, I guess, who approached you, and how did that all come to be?
Nobody approached us.
Winston Groom called the house.
Mm.
Winston Groom, the original author, would call my house and ask me questions. And because I was on the road a lot, the kids would answer the phone. And he would ask, well, is Sammy Davis there? No, he's out running to Kansas. No, he's out running to wherever. And I personally think that's where he got the running thing in. But that's where it got it started.
Where Forrest just kept running, and you saw all these great footages of him running across America, just like you're running across America.
Yes, ma'am.
And one of the things in that scene, I was excited because I grew up in Flagstaff. So there's a scene where he's running up downtown Flagstaff. I'm like, oh, Forrest Gump was in Flagstaff.
It's still a movie. There's bits and pieces.
Yes, it is movie.
But they really never talk personally to Sam because he's considered public domain.
As a Medal of
So
Honor.
everything that they used is free to the public. So otherwise they would have had to pay him. So they used all that footage, where they superimposed Tom Hanks' head over Sam's body.
Yep.
And so that was all just from the archives, and they could use all that for free. And all the story, I mean, every story is probably on the computer, you can get in all YouTube stories. And so a lot of life events were already there.
Definitely.
But he would somebody would stand at our local Walmart or go to the American Legions and say, do you know Sammy Davis? Well, it's a small town. Everybody did. And that's how they got a lot of stories too.
Oh, that's how they got more stories of you. Wow.
Stories.
Wow. So
now they're in the process of making another movie. This one actually is going to be Sam's movie. Um, I didn't know it took so long to make movies, but it does. So this one will be Cudgel. That's the name of the fire base where Sam earned the medal. It's Cudgel. Is it Cudgel Revisited?
It's just Cudgel, as far as I know.
Okay. So that's been interesting too. Really educational to see how they do all of that.
Yeah, that will be really interesting to see, for sure. So when you received the Medal of Honor, that famous footage that we were just talking about, what they superimposed Tom Hanks' face onto yours, um, did you know that that was going to happen when you watched Forrest Gump for the first time? Did you
They
realize that?
they told me that they were going to use some of my footage.
Okay.
I didn't know exactly what, but
And
So
your mom knew it was the back of your head.
yes.
she recognized your head.
Well, I originally thought that they put Tom's whole head on my body, and my mama said, "No, son, those are the knobs on the back of your head." And it turned out that what they just put Tom's face over my face.
How funny that must have been, for
Yes.
sure. So in the movie, when you're receiving the Medal of Honor, and I believe he's asking you a question, and you say you have to go pee. Did you really have to go pee? I mean, or is that just added in?
I really did, and the president wanted to see where I was shot, but I just showed him a little bit.
You didn't.
Well, I didn't take my pants off or nothing.
No.
I just
So you really did have to go pee,
oh, definitely.
and that's what you said to the president.
Yes, it was okay.
I thought he was the one that had to go. Remember that?
No, I had to go pee.
Okay.
You know me.
This part out.
No, it's okay.
Well, and how fun that must have been, for sure, to have just watched that movie and to see the bits and pieces that they did take. And then, of course, like you said, it's Hollywood, so
That's right. It is
But-
Holly.
it is Hollywood, and the scene, of course, being shot in the buttocks, as you've explained, was definitely a lot more than just one single shot in the buttocks.
Definitely.
Definitely. And so to this day, how many of the fellas that were with you on that day are still around?
I think there's only 7 of us left now.
Wow.
We should be having another reunion here before too long, I hope, and we'll find out how many's left.
Okay. Well, hopefully still quite a few.
Of
So
the 3 that I swam across the river for, the man that was shot through the head and shot through the chest is the only one still surviving. Jim Deister from Salina, Kansas is alive and doing well. And the other 2 men, they were wounded, but not as bad as Jim. And they've passed, Agent Orange. And Jim's still here. So God bless him.
that's
We took Jim and his wife Rita back to Vietnam with us when we went.
In 2016.
So that was very,
Very special.
yeah.
oh, they went back with you.
Oh, yes.
Good.
Well, tell us about that. Tell us about that.
We got to stand on the exact spot where Sam pulled
Jim
across.
still had one of his original map with the orders on how they were supposed to. He was infantry, I was artillery, but he had an original map, and it had grid coordinates on it. And my cell phone that doesn't work that great at home in Indiana worked perfectly in Vietnam. I mean, we're in jungle, and I poked in the grid coordinates on the map, and red dot was the grid coordinates and the blue dot was where we were, and we kept walking until the 2 dots merged, and we were exactly where I'd swim across the river and got Jim. It was awesome.
Wow. So you were, wow, that's amazing. And how did that feel when you got to that spot? What?
We both stood there and hugged each other and cried. it was wonderful.
You said Jim told you things about the
Yes,
battle.
Jim and I we never really talked about that night. Standing on the riverbank that day, we talked about it, and he told me things that were happening, that had happened, and where they'd come from and what they did, and it just helped make everything make more sense. You know, now I understood it much better than what I'd ever had before, because I didn't know exactly why they were there, what they were actually doing, and Jim enlightened me greatly.
Wow, that had to have been quite the experience for sure to go back to that very, very place. Now, I'm curious. Are you a big fan of Vietnamese food?
Oh, I love it. Yes, ma'am.
What's your favorite Vietnamese dish?
Whatever I'm eating at the moment, I love it all. I've never had any Vietnamese. Well, I can't say I never had any. Most of the Vietnamese food that I've had is really, really good, and I really enjoy it. Really enjoy it.
How about you, Dixie? Did you like Vietnamese food?
Well, we ate with the locals
Yes.
all the time. Man, I was sick of white rice. And then somebody said, well, you could have been ordering like fried rice, different. And a lot of times I did not know what I was eating. They all said chicken. I'm not sure.
Well, you're Vietnamese. You know what they eat over there.
I do, and I do, and we really do enjoy Vietnamese food, and I definitely want to go back and have a lot of that street food for sure.
I love it. I love
Yeah.
just walking down Tudo Street and eating all the food that's available.
That's great. So how long were you in Vietnam when you went back?
What was there, a week? 12 days? 2 weeks?
12 or 4, no, 12 days, I think.
In Vietnam, actually 12 days.
12 days. So what was the whole experience like when you went and then you were among the Vietnamese people, and because now you got to go on vacation, you're not there with all this
Right.
hot mess going on.
Well, I had wanted to go back to Vietnam for many, many years. And I kept saying, well, I'll go back next year. Well, I'll go back next year. And in 2016, I realized, well, I'm getting older. I better go this year. So we set everything all up and we went, and I'm glad. It was our State Department worked with their State Department, and we got to have a noon meal with 5 of my former enemies. And the first hour, they spoke about as much English as I spoke Vietnamese, TT. And they would say something, the interpreter would say something. I knew just a little bit of Vietnamese, just enough to know that what the interpreter was telling me they were saying wasn't exactly what they were saying. Mm-hmm. And after about an hour, I told them, I said, well, I want you to know that I have never hated you because you were Vietnamese. I was just a soldier doing my job. And when the interpreter told them that, their eyes widened and lit up, and the expression on their face changes. And they said, that's exactly how we feel. We didn't hate you because you were American. We were just soldiers doing our job. The conversation after that it opened up much better, and we really enjoyed meeting each other. It was an honor to be with those 5 men.
Wow.
And they're all old men now.
Yeah, we're all old men.
Yeah, that had to be something else. Definitely to sit across, shared a meal with. It reminds me of that Midler song. From a distance, you look like my friend. Even though we are at war.
Yeah.
We ended up, when we came together that morning, we were previous enemies. When we left that evening, we left as brothers. It was awesome. Beautiful day. Helped change my whole aspect of what happened in Vietnam. I did my job.
Yeah.
And they did their job.
And they did their job. So
what a healing moment.
Yes, ma'am. Definitely a healing moment.
And how did you end up with a meal together? Who I guess
Our
orchestrated it?
I asked our State Department if they, by chance, could find some of my former enemy that was there the night that I earned the medal,
And then they invited us to the dinner.
and they invited us to the dinner. So it worked out wonderful.
Wow.
And then they left before the check came.
Well,
But
I guess
there were 14 or 15 people there,
I don't know if there's that many.
and it was $30.
A little more than that, probably 60. It was very inexpensive.
We had a 5-course meal for 15 people, and it
wow.
was wonderful, wonderful, wonderful food. And they got up and walked out, and I paid the bill, but it was only like $60 for everybody. I mean, it was wow.
That's
awesome.
amazing. That's amazing.
We
So
got scolded for leaving too much money for
a tip. Yep.
oh, you got scolded.
Yes.
The
Well, the
interpreter.
interpreter, he said, you can't do that. He said that is like a week's wages for the Vietnamese people. So you cannot give that much money. And it was just normal what we would do
Yeah.
here.
20%.
Had no idea.
Wow, how interesting, isn't that? The
I thought
cultural difference of all that. And that he told you couldn't do it. And because I guess it just was not appropriate is what he was telling you. Huh?
So
Wow. So you toured Vietnam. What were the places that you went to? You went to you told us the one.
We got to do Saigon.
and everybody there rides a moped. Like a family of 7 will be on one little
On
moped,
one moped.
plus a
Unbelievable.
pig. And if you went to a stop sign, you couldn't fall over. There were too many. You
Too
just
many
lean
people.
into
The
the next
traffic
guy.
is phenomenal.
Well, and Saigon is where I was born. So I was born. Yeah, I was born in Saigon.
Very busy.
Very beautiful.
Very
Beautiful
populated.
people. Yes, definitely.
And so then, out of the places that you visited, did you have a favorite town or city or?
In Saigon, we were just told last week, we were doing this like a pre-movie thing at the wall in Washington. And there was a lady came up and talked to us, and she was Vietnamese. And when we said we had been to Ho Chi Minh City, she said, don't say that. I said, okay. She said, we say Saigon. We will not say Ho Chi Minh City. So all these little learning things that happen, but they put us in an old French hotel. It was beautiful.
I don't remember the name of it, but it was a beautiful old French hotel.
We would eat all this food with the locals all day, and I look forward to going back because they had ice cream. But the woodwork was so beautiful.
Intricate.
And instead of a closet, there'd be this big carved wardrobe. It was must have been like a luxury hotel for them because, but I liked being out in the country. I like to see how people really live. And it was hot and lush. The flowers were incredible. I could have tried to spend as much time as I could just looking at all the.
We got to go out to the site where I earned the medal on mopeds because that was basically about the only way you could get there. And
they didn't want us old people to walk that far.
And they didn't want us to walk.
And it was hot, so they gave us the coolie hats, and they all tied under your chin with chiffon. So Sam had on a straw hat with this beautiful purple chiffon under his tie. He looked good.
It worked great.
I knew we were going to die though, because we went across the river. I don't know if it was probably, I'm trying to put my hands on the screen, probably 4 feet wide.
The bridge.
Yeah, the bridge. We would pass other mopeds.
And it was basically just a walking bridge across the river, and
with no rails.
With nothing, just boards going across, and it was a big river. It wasn't the Mekong, but it was a tributary. But we seen other mopeds coming from the other direction. I thought, well, how's this going to work? And we made it. We passed. It was amazing. Wow. I'm ready to go back. I'd love to go back and do it again just to see the scenes and meet the people again.
Yeah, maybe I can tag along with you.
Oh, that'd be awesome. That would be awesome.
That would be so much fun.
We always ate outside. We may have a canopy over us or a wood structure, almost like a pergola, but very seldom did we ever eat. At the hotel we did.
Yeah.
But everything else, and I was happy because you don't want to miss anything. It's so beautiful. And everybody was so nice to us and couldn't have been more accommodating.
Definitely were nice to us.
But what I found out, the women do all the work and the men squat and talk. And then there are hammocks, like instead of a roadside you pull off and there's hammocks there. And people just go and take a nap. I guess they're tired of driving, so they just go and get one of the hammocks and nap. But it's all men because the women were working.
Is that any different than here?
Maybe not. I don't know.
I'm just teasing. I find it interesting that you said that even over there, they said don't call it Ho Chi Minh City. They call it Saigon even in Vietnam.
No, we didn't. We just heard that about it. Just a while back in Washington, D.C.
Oh, okay.
Nobody. Well, I don't think a lot of people spoke English, so the interaction was mainly through our interpreter.
Okay.
So you really didn't get that. And he could change. He was Australian, married to a lady from Saigon, right? Yeah. And so a lot of things we found out later kind of got translated a little differently.
Okay. Yes.
No, we did not know that in Saigon.
Okay. Yes, because I know I don't call it Ho Chi Minh City, and no one that I,
it will always be Saigon.
It's always Saigon. I mean, obviously, if you book your flight, it's named as Ho Chi Minh City, but but as in conversation, it's not referred to that. I knew that from here because we're obviously the Vietnamese American. We're very proud to be Americans. I think there's a huge Vietnamese community in America, and the majority of the Vietnamese people are very, very patriotic, and they love America, and we love our veterans. Our Vietnam vets are top. And unfortunately, I think the media did not portray that when you first came home from Vietnam.
Oh, no, they did not.
No.
Yeah. It's so sad. And your experience coming home, I mean, you obviously were very injured, but even in recovery, what was that like, coming out of the war as a Vietnam vet? How was that at home?
They told us that when we got off the plane in San Francisco, coming in from Vietnam, they said, now there's going to be a group of hippies there, and they're going to throw bad things at you and hit you and try to get you to respond because they want to be on TV. Don't allow them to do that. Just ignore them and do your job. So when we got there were, I don't know, 100 and some of us on the plane, and we all just marched right through them, and they were items they'd picked up in their yard after their dog had been there. They had bucketfuls of it and sacks full of it, and they were rubbing it on our head and rubbing it on our face and throwing it at us, trying to get us to respond.
They were hitting you with their canes.
And they were hitting us with their canes, yes. And we did good. We did what our captain had just told us to do. We marched right through them and did our job. And that's what, as a Medal of Honor recipient, I've led a lot of parades and had a lot of response from the other non-patriotic people, in my opinion. And I've always ignored them and just did my job.
Wow. That's just mortifying to hear that they would actually put, you know, that on you, rubbing it into your hair and hitting you with a cane. And
Trying to get us to respond, and we didn't.
And the TV camera was there.
Oh yeah, definitely.
yeah,
TV cameras were there.
Sam tried to get that footage for years.
Yep.
Could never get it.
Nope.
oh, they won't release it. Well, yeah.
No.
They had misplaced it.
Oh, how convenient, huh?
Yeah.
And that's just awful. And I know I've heard of many stories of, you know, soldiers coming home and just treated so poorly. And unfortunately the media did not portray things very well. And that was hard. And to this day, I think a lot of Vietnam vets have really suffered because of those things. I mean, you obviously experienced things you shouldn't have, seen things you shouldn't have, and then you come home and
Yes. Well, that's one of the reasons why our veterans that come home today, there's always a group of Vietnam veterans that are there applauding them and giving them hugs and welcoming them home, because we didn't get that.
Mhm.
And we want to be there for them. So whenever we know there's going to be a group of current veterans, we're there to support them.
wow.
A very sad thing that happened was Billy Ray.
Oh,
He was one of the guys that Sam saved, and unfortunately, he lost a leg.
Yeah.
And he was a disabled vet. He was a black man, and from Texas. He was never treated well, and
No.
eventually he committed suicide.
God bless him.
So I mean, that's just another loss for a war, and so many died after that. Still do. I think
Yeah.
it's 22 veterans still commit suicide every day.
At least 22. And
Yeah.
we're losing so many to exposure to Agent Orange. The diseases that Agent Orange created and caused is still taking us. And going back to Vietnam, that was one of the questions that I asked. And yes, they are definitely suffering from Agent Orange also. Now, at the time, it did save a lot of lives, because they could go in and spray it on triple canopy, and within 24 hours, it looked like wintertime, you know, and you could see the enemy. Was the purpose of why they did it, and it saved our life. But it's been killing us ever since.
Yeah, pretty horrific for sure. And like I said, that for me personally, the Vietnam vets, you know, they're deep in my heart for so many reasons. I mean, one, the sacrifices you made were huge. And some gave the ultimate, they didn't make it home. And the ones that did make it home are still, you know, feeling the repercussions of it physically, emotionally, mentally. And for you, I just applaud you and Dixie's and just really love you guys so much for this, because you're out there not dwelling on the things that have happened to you. Because believe me, the injuries that you have, I know that you probably have pain every day. I mean, how can you not? And yet you get up every day and you're still looking at serving others and listening to what you say. You make an effort to even welcome home the soldiers coming home today, so that they don't have to experience the things that you felt.
Exactly.
And what such love that you have learned. How does one come to know how to love so deeply the way you and Dixie have learned?
From life experience. I have seen both sides. Love is what I want. So that's what I give. And usually that's what we get back, is love.
I think it was how we were raised too. My mom and dad had just two words they would say to us, and we knew exactly what it meant. They would simply say, "Act right." And we knew. So, and back then, our parents expected us to be a certain way. If we got in trouble at school, they did not call the school and tell the teacher they were wrong. My mom always said, if you ever get in trouble at school, it'll be twice as bad when you get home. And somebody asked me one time, what was twice as bad? And I said, I never took the chance. I don't know. But I believed him.
Well, I was kind of the same in my household, and not only was I going to get it twice as bad or triple as bad, but my parents gave the authority to all adults to spank me.
Oh, yes. Ours too.
Yep, that was the way it was back
Yep.
then.
Yeah. And they just said every time we went anywhere, they said, if she acts up, you go ahead and spank her. And,
Yeah.
and then I knew if I get spanked by them, I'm gonna really get spanked by my parents.
Yeah, definitely.
Maybe that's twice as bad, right? Yeah. If you ever got in trouble, my parents would know it before we ever got home, because the whole we had a small town, so everybody knew everybody else's kids.
Yep.
And I don't know, the parents back then were not ever afraid to say, you cannot do that. You know, they were, and we knew we had better listen because we knew we were wrong. You know, you want to try to talk your way out of it, but you pretty much know.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, and when you kind of, it's interesting because when you're young, you know, you only know what you've been taught, right? So you either just do exactly what you're told, or you end up doing the complete opposite because you have a rebellious, you know, because we're rebellious in nature, especially around our teenage years, right?
Yes.
And so when I think about the hippies, you know, that protested the war, you know, because here's the funny thing is that when I grew up in Flagstaff, so it was a hippie town. So my parents came from Vietnam, and I grew up in a hippie town. So most of my friends' parents were hippies. They protested the war. And I used to wonder why. I used to get really upset with my mom because she never let me spend the night at my friends' houses, you know, and she would always say Vietnamese girls don't spend the night at people's homes. And I'd be like, that's really stupid, because I was an American kid. So in my head, I'm like, but all my friends get to. But then as I got older and became a mom myself and realized what my parents had gone through, like it really hit me, like understood. And I thought, my gosh, they just left their home. My mom didn't know English that well. We came to a hippie town where the majority of the people protested the war. Why would they let me spend the night at my friends' homes who the parents were protesting the war? I mean, they didn't know how they were going to be with me,
Exactly.
you know? And I mean, they were nice people, but you know, but in their younger years, they just went along with what they felt in their heart was right.
Yeah.
They were just kids themselves, right? I mean, they were just kids themselves.
To help a people be free.
Yes.
That's why I went to Vietnam. Freedom is worth fighting for, and I went to Vietnam so the Vietnamese people could be free and not be communist.
Yeah, I so appreciate that so much too, because yes, you went to, so not only did you fight for freedom for your own country, America, but you went to a country where my family is from that wasn't even your country. And look at the sacrifices that you and your friends made for my freedom. And I wouldn't have American Dream Makers show today had that not happened. And and I have to tell you, you guys, I just, my heart is just, I feel so much emotion, and I just love you guys so much. Em yêu anh and yêu chị nhiều nhiều lắm. You know, and I don't speak Vietnamese real fluently. I speak it. I mean, to you guys, it all sounds fluent. And you actually do really well too, Sammy. You've said a few Vietnamese words to me, and I'm like, wow.
When I'm exposed to it again, like when I went back to Vietnam, all of a sudden a lot more words and phrases came back to me. And I do not speak Vietnamese, but I do understand a little bit of what you're saying.
That's great. That's great. And especially if they tell you the food stuff, right? You kind of understand the food.
Yes.
And I love the food.
Yeah. Well, I thank you so much for you taking your time out of your busy schedule. I know you guys are like in between your travels right now.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there one last thing, anything that you'd like to leave a message for the audience?
I want every American to stand up firmly for what you believe is right in your heart. That's what America is about. Stand up for what you believe is right.
Awesome.
And I think we need to remember that in the end, everything is about family. For us, it's faith and family.
Yes.
And I think that's why we do what we do, trying to set example for the kids and the grandkids. Oh, we're going to be first-time great-grandparents. And so we're excited about that. But kids watch, and you need to do the right thing so they learn.
Right.
I mean, you could talk to them forever, and until they see it in action, then they believe it.
That's great. And Sammy, one of your coined phrases is "You don't lose
Until you quit trying.
until you quit trying."
Yes, ma'am. I believe that with all my heart. I learned that for sure in Vietnam. My mother, when I was a little kid, was Sammy Lee, you don't lose till you quit trying. And when I was swimming across that riverbank, a river that night in Vietnam, and my body was hurting, I didn't know if I could make it. And that was my mama in my heart telling me, Sammy Lee, you don't lose till you quit trying. And that's the name of my book. You don't lose till you quit trying.
So where can we get a copy of your book, Sammy?
Have to write to us.
Okay.
And
Have it?
actually, you can message either of us on Facebook.
Okay.
You detail if you want a signed copy,
A signed
and
copy.
we can
yeah.
do. And I have my book is, what's the name of my book?
Endless Love, Second Chances.
Endless Love and Second Chances, and I tell that whole story. I always tell people I tell all the good stuff.
And she does.
Yes. Well, okay, guys. So definitely message Sammy and Dixie and get their books. Amazing stories. They go into so much detail. It's so they're just great, great people. So definitely message them. Or if you don't know how to message them, definitely message me, and I'll make sure you guys get in contact.
Thank you, Sam.
And also, there is a YouTube video with Sammy's Medal of Honor experience. And so I'm going to put that into the chat afterwards. And
Excellent.
you guys, viewers, make sure you take a look at it. It's amazing. It's a real miracle that Sammy is even here today doing what he does, along with his lovely, beautiful wife, Dixie. So thank you so much again from the bottom of my heart, you two. Just love you to pieces. And I just don't even know what else to say. It was been a very great morning, great way to start out the day. So I appreciate you both very much.
Right.
Thank you, Zine. It's been a pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Bye. We'll talk to you soon. You guys, thank you so much for joining us here today. And if you watch this replay, please be sure to share this out. Get their message out. Sammy and Dixie are doing amazing things. Get their books. And so I will see you tomorrow. We will be back on tomorrow with a special guest, Miss Sawaro, Alexis Nykamp. And so I will see you tomorrow. Have a wonderful day. Be blessed.